I think internally in our organization and externally, and I think with context to what we're discussing, protect your people, and that's what we as advocates, are set out to do. In whatever case is being argued, or whatever pleading is being fought, or whatever position is being taken, protect your people. And when you protect your people and you protect your client, the law then does take precedence, and one has to remember that nobody is above the law. Qabza mafia is actually a very interesting terminology that has evolved over time. What it means is that there is a grouping of people that have access to powerful circles, and they systemically use the legal system to take over land of private individuals. And in recent times, what's been happening is this is also augmented to taking over land of government functionaries. Out of the reach of Qabza mafias, private individuals and complainants can file complaints under these laws and seek expeditious relief against those who are using the law and the legal system to take over the land. So what would happen, by way of an example, is that a civil suit would be filed in court against a private individual impeding various government functionaries. Given that these civil suits go on for years and years, Qabza mafias and slowly and surely land grabbing activity takes place, and it's kind of legalized like money laundering is done. These groups get access to land by way of coercion and pressure tactics involving functionaries of the government, legally or illegally. Pertinent to understand the fundamental right to acquire and own property in the Constitution under Article 23. So every individual has the right to acquire property and own property and have proper and vested title to the property they acquire. Is they aim to create a defense mechanism when there is a Qabza related activity that takes place, which perhaps a private individual cannot properly contest within a civil suit when it is filing on a factual basis, because the domain and jurisdiction of a civil suit is to determine a factual controversy, and that factual controversy is whether the land belongs to the individual or not. Now, on the basis of title documents, sometimes there will be illegal conversions that would have taken place. Sometimes authorities would have transferred the land without due process. So that's when the aggrieved party has the right under the Dispossession Act and the Eradication of Qabza Act to demonstrate where the illegality took place and how the illegality took place. And of course, there's an evidentiary process that does run under these laws as well. But I think they're just more specific in nature to really trap what kind of illegal activity is going on. So I think these are the three consolidated laws that we have. There is a portal as well to make complaints related to Qabza related activities. And this is the kind of overarching framework with regard to Qabza mafia and the relief that can be secured against them. Documenting the chain of title becomes extremely important. And as you may have seen in recent news, I think the Bahria town example becomes very, very relevant to any transaction. And the reason is that there is one school of thought which suggests that land can be transferred, if there is a commercial transaction that takes place. But what needs to really be considered is there is a set of rules, regulations acted by Parliament that sometimes restricts the land from being transferred or being included in a scheme because the land has to be between the Sindh government, the Malay Development Authority, and then ultimately Bahria town, completely ignoring the legal framework of Malay Development Authority Act 1993, which pretty specifically inhibits a commercial sale. And really, I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating, because there's no sale transaction and no conveyance deed that took place in order for the property to vest with Bahria town. So really, even if very, very robust and thorough due diligence is done with regard to title documents and with regard to the legal framework that backs the ownership of the land from the get-go, from day one. So if that legal framework is ignored, chain of title is created by way of commercial transaction, I think that's also unfair, because right now, we are seeing essentially a violation of the previous two Supreme Court orders of 2019 and of 2023 in relation to Bahria town, because Bahria town simply argues that there is not the contracted amount of land that was allocated However, and for that particular purpose, the amount due to the government and to the Supreme Court by Bahria Town then becomes almost unpayable. This needs to kind of be looked at two aspects. One is you need to look at the chain of title by virtue of looking at documents, but you also need to examine the legal and regulatory framework that governs the land, especially when it comes to state-owned land. I think just as a parting note, there's thousands of property disputes in court. A lot of the times that they are family disputes, and the sort of thinking, at least within because our legal system is protracted and naturally there's a burden of several cases, the thinking has become to sort of delay and antagonize, and especially among private family disputes, that it actually affects the law and precedent. When you're kind of in a property dispute for over a decade, and there's illegal conversions and constructions happened, and authorities have kind of been potentially involved in such situations, what ends up happening is our precedent and the legal system gets deprecated and destroyed because it's just being looked at in a particular manner to up the bargaining position as opposed to enforce the writ of the law and the Constitution. So I think that's something that everybody is conscious of and needs to be further conscious of, and look towards early disposal of cases so that the precedent and the law of the land remains intact.